Hello, hello. I am so excited to share with you guys today. My name is Carla Marie Williams. For those of you that do not know me, I am a wife of almost 30 years, a mom of six kids, a grandma of two, a speaker, author of many books, but most importantly, my desire and purpose is to inspire moms far and wide in different seasons of their lives. And we're going to be having this particular series. I have a series of five amazing moms who are reinventing themselves throughout this season of life, the empty nest season. So, whether you're in the season, approaching the season, far into the season, I think that you will get a lot out of this series. So, stay tuned for all of the interviews. There'll be five of them. But they're based on my newest book, which is called Dear Lord, What's Next? And it's about embracing the next phase of life as your children enter into adulthood. And so, there are a lot of things and nuances that you have to navigate when it comes to the season of life. But I'm just really excited to share this book with you and to share this series with you. I want to read before we get started and introduce our guests. I want to read a small snippet from one of the chapters, which is called Purpose versus Seasons. I want you to recognize, above all things, purpose and seasons are not the same. This means that who God called you to be will look different throughout your life. You have not lost your thing. You have not missed your window. Don't think for one moment that it is too late to dive into those things that set your heart on fire. Sometimes we have to wait for the right season for that part of our purpose to reveal itself. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about the season of that I'm in, which is why I wrote this book. Most of my books, I kick out books like recipes. And that's a season of life that I'm in over the last, I'd say, 8 years. Always been a writer, but as far as publishing books under my own name, I've been doing it for a very long time. And most of my books, when I'm inspired, I write. When I'm not inspired, I shut up. And so, but this particular book took me 2 years. And it's longer than any book has ever taken me to write. And I think the reason is because we've had as a family a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns that honestly make the book that much more richer and much more relatable to a variety of families and circumstances. And so um, I didn't know when I was going to be able to finish it, but thankfully, come April 26th, it is going to be available on Amazon. But I'm very excited to share this with the wider community. Um, but I have been a mom for 19 years and homeschooled six kids. Um, that's the season of life that I'm in, but I've graduated five. I have one left. We'll talk about that later, what that one left looks like. Um, and two have grown and flown the nest. I have two adults living at home, one that is about to be an adult. So soon I'll have three adults living at home, and then an almost 16-year-old. And so, yeah, it didn't seem like, when you're younger, it seems like those years just, they drag on. The days drag on. You never think that you're going to get to this season or on to the other side, right? And wow, I look back now and that time went so incredibly fast. It just blows my mind how fast it went. And so we're going to be talking about that season. A lot of times it just creeps upon us and we're like, whoa, how that happened so fast? Where did the time go? And so we're going to be talking about that. And today, my guest is an amazing mom, a woman that I have known for, I think, over a decade now, starting online in a homeschool Facebook group. But her name is Nicole Green. She is a believer, a wife, and I believe of over 30 years, or almost, okay, almost 30 years, and a mom of three who she homeschooled. She's a ministry leader, a conference host, an author, a speaker, and the founder of Mom Matters. Nicole, thank you so much for joining me and being a part of this conversation. I know that all the moms are going to get a lot of wisdom out of what you have to share with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carla. I am so excited to get the invitation. I was like, yes, let's talk about it.
Yes, I'm telling you, I don't think that it's talked about enough. I think that we come up upon this. You know, it's like we raise kids and we find our identity, excuse me, in motherhood.
Mhm.
And then suddenly, it's not that we stop being moms. You never stop being a mom, but it's like things change and shift so fast. And you're like, which is why the name of the book is Dear Lord, What's Next?
Mhm.
Like, what in the world? Who am I now? What am I going to do? What does the next phase of my life look like? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Can you tell us a little bit more about your family and your motherhood journey that you have traveled?
Absolutely. So we've been married 28 years, 28 years this past November. So we're moving into year 29, or we're into year 29. And when we got married, my husband was halfway through medical school. And so I was working and he was in school. And so obviously we weren't going to, well, I mean, not that we tried hard not to have kids while we were not having lots of money to eat with, right? So we're gonna eat, we're just gonna feed ourselves, we're gonna pay this rent, we're gonna get finished with school. And so about 4 years in, our when my husband was in his first residency, our daughter was born. And it was such a I seldom tell this part, but I will. It was such an interesting experience because I always saw myself as a boy mom. And I don't even know where that came from. And lots of people will attest to that. And so accidentally we found out she was a girl because the tech just couldn't hold it, and she told us. And I remember in that moment, I lay on the table and just cried.
Um,
And the sonogram tech was so excited. She said, "Look how happy she is. She's so excited." My husband was like, I don't think that's what that is." And I cried because it was the first time I thought to myself, how am I going to raise this girl? And for some reason, I just assumed that my husband would be a great dad to boys. And I don't know what I thought. I was going to get off doing, I don't know what. But I don't want to tell that story here because I think that's where my journey began. 20 weeks in at that first sonogram, realizing this is getting ready to be more work than I think it is. And I had worked in daycare settings and youth ministry and everything. So I was really good at other people's children, you know? And so that's where our journey began. She turned 24 in February,
um,
and I did finally get those boys. So we had one miscarriage between, and then 3 years later, after she's 24, then I have one that's going to be 21 in July. He is a third year fashion design major studying abroad this semester.
awesome.
And then we had then 2 year just short of 2 years later, we had number three, who's also a boy. So I did get those boys, but at the tail end. Had a couple more miscarriages after that, and then finally the fertility was over and it was fine. We my quiver was full. My quiver, I don't know about his, my quiver was full. And we were done. And so it has been a journey. So now this year, 24, they'll be she's turned 24, their boys will be 21 and 19. We started homeschooling. We homeschooled all of them K to 12. And we started homeschooling when we moved to a small town in the Midwest that had just gotten an influx of new residents because of some stuff going on in another part of the state. And we knew that that kindergarten class was going to be crowded, and that that girl in that class with all the boys that were expected was going to eat that teacher alive. So I knew I could do kindergarten because by this point I had some kindergarten experience, and I taught her in kindergarten. Every year we've reevaluated. And that's how our life has gone, our parenting journey. We just thought about it every year until they finally told us we don't need to reevaluate. We're homeschoolers. Let's just keep doing it, you know?
Yeah.
But throughout the one marker I think I could say, especially pertaining to this conversation of motherhood for me, has been how I have grown, developed, and become more of myself alongside my children as I have had the distinct pleasure of not only homeschooling them, but parenting them, because not every mom gets to be a homeschooler or chooses to be a homeschooler. But just as we really lean into and live this life of parenthood, motherhood is a whole thing. And it is
It
why
is.
I am finding, right, in this season, I'm finding maybe over the last I guess 12 years or so, as I've been pouring into other families through homeschooling, and then here recently with Mom Matters and Homeschool Moms Pray and other things, pouring into moms specifically, it is where I can see my purpose converging with the season. And we'll talk, I know we'll talk more about that, but being able to pour into other moms, it has been the absolute best thing in my life next to Jesus and Damon Green, right? Being a mother, which I feel like they both have gifted me the opportunity to be a
Hmm.
mom. And so, yeah, my motherhood journey it's been wonderful. These young adults, though, I know we're gonna come to it, but man, that could be a whole other conversation.
That
Uh,
pause was loaded, and that's what we're going to talk about.
my Lord,
Yes. So,
yes.
um, that's actually my next question. How has your
Okay,
relationship
awesome.
changed as your kids became adults? And I want to preface that with talking about the chapter in my book called Parent to Advisor, Parent
Hmm.
versus
Hmm.
Advisor,
Hmm.
and how you become more of a older, wiser friend rather than actual parenting,
Hmm.
which is this. And I'll be honest with you, there are people that do not succeed at this.
Yeah,
And I always said, my husband and I have always said, we don't want to be that person.
don't
We
want to
don't want
be.
to be that person that tries to control our kids' lives. We don't want to be the type of in laws that are a third wheel in their marriages.
Hmm.
We want to do things differently. Thankfully, I had parents like that were kind of hands off as we were adults. So I do have a little bit of an example, but I have seen nightmares where parents do not do well in this transition. And
Mm-mm.
so share with us how your relationship changed with your
I
kids.
I made notes for this part because I wanted to make sure to highlight a couple things about this particular section in case we got to talk about it. So I'll start with my daughter in her senior year of high school. She turned 18 in February of her senior year of high school. And as that we were getting close to that birthday, she was getting, you know what I mean? Like that, she was becoming an adult. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, she's so independent, she's so strong." And I was like, "But she got several more months before she graduates." And I was trying to, because graduation, you mentioned this, that 18 is not like the magic adult, they're independent, they're on their own, don't kick them out number. And
Right.
for me, it wasn't 18, it was graduation because I
Mm-hmm.
knew she was going to turn 18 before she graduated. And so I had all started, I was all ruffling my feathers, and so I sat her down and I said, "Listen, 18 in February is not grown because you'll won't graduate until May. I think our
Mm-hmm.
graduation was like early June or something." I said, "So let's talk about what it means to be two grown women in the same." I mean, I just approached it all like
Oh
that.
yeah.
And she was like, "Bet," and my children have always been very respectful. They're not disrespectful to us at all, and we always have had this very frank. And you know me, Carla, we just talk about it, right? This very
Right.
frank, open conversation. And so she said, "Let me tell you how it's gonna be." Like we just had this
Oh, okay.
laughing about it now, 6
Oh
years later.
my. I'm clutching my
But yeah,
proverbial pearls.
yeah, this is what I expect as an adult. This is, and so and in that, I began to see her doing something that I didn't know this term, but I learned it called individuating, right? But she started a few years before. I just didn't know the expression. And individuating basically is becoming more of herself
Okay.
or becoming more of herself and less of like this family unit person, this
Right.
branch off of the collective, if anybody is a Trekkie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what she said to me was basically, "You taught me everything I know. So now I'm going to learn some stuff on my own." And
Mm-hmm.
it was this is I don't want to be basically told when to come and go. I don't want to have to tell you when I'm coming and going. And so we had to come to some adult compromises about what was important. You talk about it in the book so well
Yes.
about what was important. Do we have rules? Are you still in the chore chart? Because she's the oldest, right? Are you
Right.
still in the chore chart? What's expected of you? And it was almost as if none of us, let me just say this, none of us could wait until move-in day for college. So she went away to school, and we had that traditional angsty crying, but I didn't, like all the way to Philly. I was like, oh, I can't wait to move this child in. And my husband was mad because I had that attitude and he was doing the hurting thing and the boys were
Uh-huh.
hurting. We left her and I was glad to go. And because, we had developed that readiness to separate. Do you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What happened in that moment, and she and I talk about it now, and I think she'd be fine with us reflecting this way. What happened in that moment was the boys began to see how much it really did hurt me, that
Hmm.
she individuated sharply, but they also understood why,
Hmm.
and so we began to have some conversations so that it didn't happen with them.
Hmm.
Let out the rope some, mom, give me some more freedom. That youngest one was
Right.
like, look, I'm gone early. Like he started individuating at 15, like just a little, and but in a respectful kind of way. And because the
Yes.
angst with my daughter was so hard for everybody.
Uh-huh.
So each child has become a little easier to launch. The boys are away right now. She's home. She's back home because thank God for the pandemic, right? Which we didn't know was a blessing in this way. Because when she came home, everybody was like, "Oh Lord," because it was that first year. She had been gone a couple months. It was that,
Yes.
and nobody was. We didn't want that extended spring break. But as time happened, and she ended up coming back after going back to school for a while. She came back. We have the best relationship now.
That's
we
awesome.
we are very open and honest, and we really have adult woman to woman, or mom and dad, but with this adult conversations. So her coming into adulthood did what the oldest child is supposed to do:
Right.
train us how to do it better, different, more effectively, more respectfully, gently, all the other words, right, with the other two.
Wow.
Exactly what it was supposed to do. It trained
She
us
trained
well.
you.
It trained us well, but led to a lot of tears and
Hmm.
apologies and loud voices and all of that, until we, had those moments where, and we had to say to her over and over, no, you're the only, this is your first time being 18, 19, 20.
Hmm.
This is our first time having an 18, 19, 20-year old child.
Yes. We're
We
all
don't know
learning.
how to do it. Yeah, we're all learning. We don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so we taught each other, and it has actually been a blessing. So now when I talk to other families about this, I tell them, first of all, strap on. You think sippy cups and teething and night terrors was bad? Okay, strap on, because this here, sis, is another thing.
It is.
This is another thing altogether.
It's so interesting. I'm there right now. I have two that are out of the house, and that was hard.
Mhm.
And absence has made the heart grow fonder. Like,
Mhm.
when they fly the nest, it's almost like they get in situations. I'll never forget my daughter when she was in culinary art school. She said, "Mom, these people don't even know how to clean up after themselves, and they don't know how to do
Right.
this, and they don't know how to do that." And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, and then my son, he's been, all over Asia Pacific, I guess you
Mhm.
could say, but mostly in Japan, with the Navy. And same thing, he's like, these people, I mean, he's like, it's like their parents just had them and let go. He's like, that they don't know the things that we know, and I'm so appreciative, and he
Yeah.
refers to the things that he appreciates that we've done.
Mhm.
Obviously, in the moment, he didn't always prefer it.
Right. Right.
But your your relationship does change, and even with the adult children that I have that live at home now, the conversations are so rich. The just It's just enjoyable to see the people that they're becoming,
Mhm.
and it is hard to let go and not to be involved in the details of their decisions. I'll tell you, one of the hardest things for me is when I registered, was it my fourth and fifth child for college? And the professors and the everyone involved with the process didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just hard for me, it was hard for my kids too, because they're like, what do I
Them.
say? What do I
Mhm.
say in this email? What do I do? I mean, they were like, we don't want to get an email from your mama. We don't want to talk to your mama. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. But they're learning and they're growing and learning how to speak, speak up for themselves. And, obviously I'm behind the scenes trying to guide gently when asked.
Right, right,
Um, but
right.
that was a moment for me that was like, whoa, I have
Mhm.
to let go of directing. Like you said, as a homeschool mom, you're used to directing education. So now they can go into the next level of education and you can't be any part of it. That was like, what? That was kind of scary for me. Um, but yeah, there is a chapter in my book called Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. And I
Mhm.
tell you, some moms really get stuck in the mode of um, not wanting to make this transition because they feel like they woulda, coulda, shoulda done things differently in different areas as a parent. And they get stuck there and mom guilt and, what if I would have done this differently and that differently? And um, could you kind of speak to that and how you shut those things down, how you move forward, how you deal with those thoughts that try to attack you from moving forward into the next season?
So that was the first chapter I got stuck on. I just want you to know. So, because with my daughter, be like I said, we had that last year was tumultuous. And so what I woulda, coulda, shoulda, when after I dropped her off, and we was try to not be so contentious. I wish I would have not returned her energy. You know
Yeah,
that expression, I'm returning your energy, or
yeah.
matching. I wish
Uh-huh.
I would have not matched her energy,
Yeah,
because matching her energy in that moment was a waste of time.
yeah.
Not a waste of time in the sense that it didn't produce anything. It was a waste of time in the sense that it wasted time
Hmm.
that
That's
we
good.
could have spent doing other things if I wasn't so bent on you're still it wasted time.
Right.
And it wasn't until the pandemic started killing people, like really killing people, then I lost my mom that year in January. It wasn't until like all of that happened. And listen, this season sometimes the way it converges with menopause is a whole other conversation. It
Woo!
wasn't until right, it wasn't until all of that happened that I realized you should have been doing other things with her last year.
Mm,
Right. And it wasn't even that I wondered. I mean, I did, but not really, just because I knew I knew she could clean up after herself. I knew, and we had all these same conversations. Mom, these girls, all the things they don't do, and how unparented people are in the world today.
right.
And Gen Z has no parents. Like, where are the parents? My kids said it. And so, it wasn't those things with her
Hmm.
as much as it was, I worried that I wasted time in places that as we were shaking the roots, right, to loosen them, we wasted time making sure that they were actually rooted. It's weird. It was a weird convergence. So when number two, when the oldest son went to school, he was the one that I was trying to make sure he knew how to make his own decisions confidently, because he is the one, I think, that if he could still, he would be right under my arm. Like, he's a wanderer physically, but he asks a lot of of advice a lot. Not that it's a problem, but he
Right.
always he looks back for advice all the time. Can I make this step? Can I do? How do I talk to the even as a junior mom? My next semester, I need to make these choices. What would you choose? And
Hmm.
so, what the place that I woulda, coulda, shoulda with him was, did I let him make enough decisions for himself
Mm.
so that when they tell me I can't, which I had that experience when he was dual enrolling his senior year, when they tell me I can't, can he?
Right.
Did I take away his confidence? Oh man, I wish I should have let him. There were a lot of places where I wasn't sure. That child can cook a whole holiday dinner. You know what I'm saying? But there are other things that I wasn't sure he could do. I felt like that about that. And then this youngest one who went away to college in Chicago, I was like, did I teach him enough about danger? Like he's, he's not, we live in the suburbs of DC, so DC is enough of a city, and he
Right.
was the one that did the most catching metro and being all out in public by himself. But I was always worried that he didn't have enough of a sense of danger. And I
Mm.
was really worried that we didn't teach him enough about keeping your wits about you and being safe. So he's a freshman, so we still say that to him. But I'm gonna tell you the honest answer to your question, short answer to your question is the way I the way I shook that woulda, coulda, shoulda, and I had to remind myself of this as I was reading this chapter, was that I repeatedly lay them at the Lord's feet.
Yes.
Repeatedly. No matter
Yes.
what I didn't do, their steps have been ordered. You're writing their story. And I think you might have heard me say this before, Carla, like when we in Homeschool Mamas Pray, that the Lord lets us hold the pen. My
Mm.
kids' lives were carefully curated, right? He lets us hold the pen, but he's writing the story. And the more I trusted him that he's writing the story, even though I might not have put that chapter in there, Lord, what was that about? Right?
Right.
The more I trust that he's actually writing the story, the better I feel about the things that I didn't do. You know what
Right.
I mean? The better I feel about the things we didn't do better. When every social situation and we have to figure out where we stand on it and do we agree or not, and with politics, like this last election we had lots of conversations, and because the Gen Z is a little different, and every conversation we've had about some things I say, I should have. I wonder if I didn't, I taught government to everybody else's kids, and only one of my kids was in my government class because I didn't start teaching government till the other two were past that point. And I should have made them understand because I don't know what they learned detailed in that class with her. And you know what I'm saying? Like all of that. I remember they're adults,
Mhm.
they're forming their own values. As an advisor, I can say this X, Y, and Z is why we this way. They remind me that I'm old and that they're trying to ensure a world for themselves that looks, whatever. And so, we have those conversations. And where I landed was two places. Number one, I have to trust the Lord with them. He loves them more than we do. And
Yes.
he knows their story from the beginning and end already. He's writing the story, right? That's the first part. The second part is, and this is where I would love for those moms who are watching this. This is where, and when they read your book, I would love for them to keep this in their mind. The second part is, you have done a good job,
Yeah.
and whatever you could do is what you did. I
Mhm.
got stuck, Carl. When I was reading, I had to remind myself. You
Yes.
did the best you could. Even if you feel like I could have done better, it was the
Mhm.
best you could in the moment. Like I had
Yes.
to come to grips with that, even thinking back about my mom with the year she died. It was the best you could because that's what we do, the best we can in the moment. You made the decisions that you made. And so now that they're adults, it's their life to catch to figure out, oh, my mom only let me learn math up to algebra. Well, sis, take a class.
Right.
Whatever it is. But as adults, we eventually have the responsibility of developing ourselves.
Hmm.
And so you did the
Absolutely.
best you could, and now put the ball in their court. Anything you think you're missing, develop yourself. Anything you don't think you got from me, develop yourself. Because what you did get was enough to get to this point in your life.
Right. Very good.
Alive and well. And look,
Right.
sis, maybe we all end up on somebody's therapy couch, but that's okay too.
Right.
At least you know that that's an option, right?
That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
good. So, so
Yeah.
good. It's oh wow. I mean, we could talk over for hours just on this topic alone.
Mhm.
I had some very specific woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like, for instance, one of my woulda, coulda, shouldas was I wish I would have waited a much longer for technology. And
Mhm.
that's probably something that a lot of moms,
Yes.
especially, and not everybody watching this is a homeschooler, so I get that. But there's a lot of times as homeschoolers when your kids are congregating and fellowshipping with other kids that are not, you don't want them to feel like the dark horse. You know what I mean? You don't want them
Mhm.
to feel like they're the weird one. So
Mhm.
I remember early on, my older two, We got them, they called them smartphones. We got them dumb phones. They were,
Mhm.
the flip phone with minutes.
Right, right,
And they would go to youth group and they would be afraid to pull it out. They go to the bathroom to use it to call home or whatever because everybody else had a smartphone.
right.
And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? People already look at them, like homeschooling. What is that? So I wanted to kind of even the playing field a little
Hmm.
bit and introduce them to technology. I felt like a myriad of issues came from that, especially, with 6 kids. Um, and so, that was my woulda, coulda, shouldas. But what are you going to do now? You just going to camp out there on that woulda, coulda, shoulda? Or are you going to move forward, recognize that, they have learned a lot through technology, um, and just continue to encourage, good choices online and that kind of thing, regardless of what age they are.
Yeah.
Um, that was one. And then another thing, I remember, just in the Christian community, a lot of Christian families doing things certain ways as far as exposing their kids to the word and understanding, God's direction and what God says about certain things. And my husband and I had seen so many teenagers, even before we were children, that ran from the church the minute they had a chance and a
Hmm.
choice. And we
Hmm.
were like, we don't want that. We don't want our kids running, from God because of the way that we approached, um, faith. And so we decided to, as we've done everything, do a more hands on, life applicable way of approaching that. And so as they got older and we started seeing, some thoughts and behaviors going off to the left and to the right of what we knew and had exposed them as the truth, um, then it had me looking back like, well, maybe we should have had them memorize,
Hmm.
25 scriptures a week. And maybe we should have, you know what I mean? Looking at the way that we approached it. And I said, you know what? But as they are older, all God requires of us as parents is to plant those seeds. And like you said, He has the vision, He is writing the story. Our job is to plant the seeds. And I can confidently say that's how I get out of that woulda, coulda, shoulda. I can confidently say that in every area of life, most areas of life, that we have planted the right seeds. And all now, my job is just to pray that they come um, to their mind and their heart when they're needed. Uh,
Yeah.
so, just for any mom that is listening, and I want to move on to the next question, but this is so important because so many moms get stuck here. For any
Yeah.
mom listening, know that planting the seeds is your primary job. Plant those seeds, in your children's hearts and in their minds. And as the Bible says, as they get older, regardless of what their journey entails, those seeds are going to come back to the forefront of their mind and heart. So just know that and
Yeah.
get out of the woulda, coulda, shoulda realm because
Yeah.
it's not going to benefit
Can I share?
you or
I'm
your
sorry.
future. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share something really briefly. So at Noah's graduation, he's the youngest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way graduations work around here, we present our kids to the congregate to the waiting congregation, as the expression goes. And so one of the things I said to Noah, and so many parents, it was funny. They came to him later and told him how this set him free. Nobody, they didn't tell me, they told him. But I said to him, he and I were having a conversation, and I can't remember the scenario right now, but the context. But he and I were having a conversation, and he said to me, he said, "Mom, listen, you have done a great job of teaching us right from wrong, good from bad, what the word says. You've taught us how to make good decisions, and you've shown us a good way to go." I'm paraphrasing. He said, "I want you to relieve yourself from the pressure of our choices. Because at this
Woo!
point in our lives, you poured so much into us. If we're choosing it, we are making choices." And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "But I want you to make," he said, "we know how to make better choices.
Mm-hmm.
You're not responsible for the choices that we make." And when I say, Carla, that
That is so
freed me.
powerful.
And that's that kid. That's that youngest kid. When I tell you, it freed me so much. And then so people at the graduation were like, because I told the story, and then they heralded him for it, and he just was like, I was just talking to my mom. But then at his graduation party, he's the one that's going to hold up a glass, to make an announcement. And he said, my siblings and I just want to say, this was his going away party. My siblings and I just want to say that we want to commend our parents for raising decent humans in this indecent world. He says, so whatever y'all see us doing, know that our parents raised decent people in this world. They
That's
need to be
amazing.
commended for that. And I, of course, I'm bawling over the sink, right? I don't know, I was getting
Right.
icy. And that was a rise up and call her blessed moment for me, because and
Yes.
not that we want, you talked about that in the book, not that we want that, but it comes later as we see the seeds grow. But I want to share it because I want to encourage those watching, those who will read the book, that literally the seeds plant that you plant, they get watered a lot of ways. The sunshine comes from a lot of different places.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it does.
seeds germinate in the dark, right?
Yeah.
So but it's gonna sprout and it will come back, and you will see it in the kind of parent they are. You'll see it in the kind of choices they make. You'll see it in the way they relate when they go away and they live with people and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you need to learn how to clean up. All of
Right.
that, all of those are seeds that we plant,
Right.
and they do come back. And again, my kids are only at 24, getting ready to be 21 and getting ready to be 19, but I can already see seeds, and it's such a blessing. It
It
doesn't mean we
is.
still have things we're asking the Lord to do. Please, Lord,
Right.
do this in their lives.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we don't continue to pray for those things, right? But
Right.
and I'm sure you'll get to this too. Having their hearts is so much more important than directing their path.
Wow.
If our hearts are still connected, then we can always advise. It is when
Yes.
we advise so much in young adulthood that we lose their hearts, that our advice
Yes.
is no longer useful, right? We got to learn
Yes.
how to get out of the Holy Spirit's way and let him be him, and we just be these sideline advisors, right? And so
Right.
anyway, I'm sorry, I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to share
That
that.
is powerful. That is so powerful. Having their hearts is much more important than directing their lives.
Yeah.
Micromanaging every detail of their lives. That's important.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think that my husband and I have learned. And to be honest, he's much better at it than I am. He is, other than God himself, my husband is one of my number one teachers
Mm-hmm.
because,
Yeah.
we have been through so much over the last 30 years, just the circumstances that we found ourselves in and overcoming and becoming victorious over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's been like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like all over the place. And he's just been a steady rock, firmly planted
Yeah.
on the word, immovable. And even if he was, you wouldn't see it. You
Wouldn't
wouldn't even
see it.
see him shake if he was inside. And it has been such a blessing to our family.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one question that I have before I want to talk about what's going on with you now,
Okay.
um, it's easy to lose steam on that last kid. And I have, an almost 18-year-old now, but a 16-year-old. Everyone else has graduated, is working and working toward, what they want to do in the next season of their lives. Um, but my 16-year-old, I am forcing myself not to jump to the next season before he's done with this season. And it's easy to
Mhm.
want to do because
Mhm.
you feel like I'm right on the end and he's mature and he can handle himself well. And it would be easy to skip out on some of the things that I felt like I did with the other kids. Um, and I know that just recently launched your baby. And so, can you share a little bit about that and how you keep yourself from doing that? Because we are working very hard to keep him involved in the things that he's passionate about, to be involved, in the decisions that he's making that are going to benefit him later, um, and just to continue to guide and
Mhm.
nurture a relationship with him, even though he is wildly independent.
Mhm.
And not the kid that's going to ask many questions. He's more of an
Mhm.
observer, a watcher, very
Mhm.
quiet.
Mhm.
Um, and so we have to even learn how to insert ourselves into his world because of that. Unlike some of my more vocal, kids that what's going on because it always comes out their mouth. But
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that and how briefly what that was like and how you made it through that last kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So my youngest is one of the few people I know who's more extroverted than me. So he's opposite of this one that you're talking about of yours.
Uh-huh.
And he was bound and determined to be out in the world before we were ready to let him out into the world, right? What the we had in our family was my boys are like about they're 19 days short of 2 years apart.
Okay.
And and where number two is cautious and slow and intentional and moved at a different kind of pace for his own self toward independence.
Mm-hmm.
Number three was we were often telling him, "You are the little brother. Like,
Right.
back up. You are the little
Yeah.
brother." We
Sit
found
down
ourselves,
somewhere.
yeah, when they were younger, like it's, you need to, and so he was, they were often in the same book for math or whatever. Like they were the same place a lot of times academically, and the youngest one is a little bit more precocious, and I had to learn not to say that over him like in his life when he was growing up, because then he was like, I'm gonna be that, it
Yeah.
became fulfilling. And but that's the you could think of. He was always, when you talk about technology, he was exposed earlier in his life, like not sooner, like he didn't have before the others had it, but it was earlier in his life before the others did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of that. But what I so when number two graduated, because he went away to college, I so hyper focused on number three, I almost smothered him.
Wow.
And he was like, okay, this is a lot. Like, I don't need all this attention from you. It was a lot of attention. And I was like, what do you want to do? And every morning I was trying to, get him in. Are you doing your work? And he was like, hey, I had this last year when the brother was here. I got it now. And I had to learn how to, and this is where I would say for you and for anybody else who finds themselves, especially in this last one at home stage, we have to parent each one according to who they are.
Yes.
I want to give you permission, Carla, to not try to make number six's life the same as one, two, three, even number four and five, because they are a different child.
Yeah.
They had the richness of that, right? Your other kids didn't have the richness. So you're a gardener, you understand this. The
Mm-hmm.
second, third, fourth year soil, as you've been building it, putting compost
Yes.
in it, adding to it, we tend to think it's depleted, but you've been caring for it all along with these other
Mm-hmm.
plants, that this last one has the richest soil, the
Yeah.
most experienced mom. You feel like you're the most tired
That's
mom,
true.
right? The most experienced mom, the more resources of everything everywhere, what to avoid, what's not necessary, because
Mm-hmm.
when the first one we try to do all the things because we think it's all necessary. What's not necessary.
Right.
You have so much more experience, and they do too.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what number three taught me. I have learned so much that as I'm bringing up the rear, you can feel comfortable with us developing a little different relationship maybe than you had with one and two,
Mm.
right? And if we
Yeah.
continue to parent them along their bent,
Mm-hmm.
you will find that they might be bent a little wider, but it's because they have more of a capacity. If we
Right.
find that they don't have more of a capacity, we still take all the wisdom of these 50 years or whatever we have going on at this stage and apply it, but just trust yourself
Mm-hmm.
and then trust them, because
Yes.
they do have a lot more capacity, I've found, than
Yeah.
the other two. And I'm talking to a friend right now who she's beginning to get a lot of opportunities and things, and she's like, but I never went outside the home. I never, if it wasn't homeschooling, I wasn't a part of it. And I said, yeah, but this is number six.
Right.
And she doesn't have to have the life that number one had. Number
Right.
one had five siblings under her.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all were paving a different kind of way. Number six has five siblings who've gone on. She's learned so much from them, you
Right.
know? So
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm like, again, what I'm learning is that this kid has a capacity that I didn't realize kids could have. I didn't, and I'm the middle child. So I had
Mm.
all angsty situations going on as the middle child that my
Uh-huh.
brother, he was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how y'all put so much stock in that. And I'm like, because
Right.
we lived. He was like, yeah, it didn't matter by the time I was coming up. They have a different, youngest one can different capacity, and however that shows up in them,
Hmm.
we have to give ourselves the grace to honor that the way it shows up in them. And again, ladies, congratulate yourself because look what you have done.
Yes.
This is number whatever number it is, and you
Yeah.
are ready to launch it. This is the last one. Even if it's
Yes.
just number two, you
Right.
have survived both of these. You know what I'm saying? Because
That is
motherhood is
so
traumatizing,
powerful.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so powerful. And I sure hope that the ladies listening and those that read the book pick up on that. She shared
Yeah.
something that is so key about the richness of the soil that the last child has,
Hmm.
as a result of all of the other familial collective experiences. Um,
Hmm.
so hold on to that, chew on that, because that can
Yeah.
change your entire perspective when it comes to launching your last kid. Um, so, one of the things that I talk about in the book is do something now. So, this would be for moms that
Hmm.
are approaching an empty nest. And when I say empty nest, there's another chapter in the book about they're still here, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, every single interview, we're not going to go over every chapter, but there's a chapter called "They're Still Here," meaning you have adult children, but they're in
Hmm.
the home. Nicole's experienced that. I have
Hmm.
as well. I am in that season right now, and but even while they're here, even while you might be, still parenting, so to speak, your last child, or maybe it's the last two kids. Um, there are things that you can do right now in the midst of whatever your life entails that can prepare you for the next season of your life. Nicole, can you tell me what things that, skill building, things that you did to prepare for where you are now and where you plan to be in the future?
Hmm. So, one of the things, and I think this was accidental. I think maybe the Lord did this with me. Well, one of the things that I started to do was right about the time my youngest started going to high school, or started high school age. I said, "This is going to last about 4 years, and then I need a plan," you
Mm-hmm.
know. And we started thinking about two in college because we at some point we were always going to have at least two in college at the same time. So we started thinking about two in college. That looks like financially.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do I really? I don't want to wake up one morning and be like, there's nothing to do in the house. Like I don't. What am I do? Like go hang out with the dog all day? Like I didn't know what I was
Right.
gonna do. I started to think about it, and I encourage moms start thinking about it early. It doesn't mean you.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you abandon where you are. Start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it because childhood is really short, and you talked about this in the book. You if you miss it, you're gonna miss it, right? You don't want
Yes.
to miss this. Yeah, you don't want to miss this because then we look up and it's over, right? And
Right.
we continue to be moms, but they don't continue to be children. We look up and it's
Right. Woo!
and so so
Okay. Go ahead.
yeah, the thing to do, I think, is to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go back to school? Do you want to enter the workforce? Do you want to start a business? You know, what I've done in this, which has been surprising to almost everybody who knows me in this season, is I'm actually somebody's employee again. After running large homeschool groups and having my own consulting business, and now I literally have a 8:30 to 5. And people are like, you actually come into an office and have a supervisor. Yes, but it's hard work for me. I work for my church.
Yes.
It's hard work for me. But around it, I'm still doing a lot of the things that I want to do. And what I've learned is that parenting these children and curating their lives and working in those places that were building them up, and like your work with your business and your nonprofit, all of that has made me rich soil.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the best way to pour out of that to continue to nurture? And it did for me, it didn't include, I have a friend who you and I know her. She had three grown kids and now did these younger ones. So now she's got these teenagers. It didn't include that. That was not what it included for me. But I certainly am learning to nurture other people. And for me, it has become nurturing these other moms as they are coming up behind me in the sense of, I've been there and done that. So where do we go next? I think the way to prepare, your question was, what do you do to prepare? You think about where you want to go next. And so often I find with moms as we get to this place, especially those who may have left the workforce, right?
Mhm.
Who were full-time stay-at-home moms, even if they didn't homeschool, or homeschooling moms or part-time, whatever, is that we look up and our resumes are empty because
Mhm.
there's this huge gap and it needs updating. So start thinking about all the things you do so
Right.
that you can prepare your resume. We also don't have, we're not adept with technology the way we should. Our kids run off and do it, and once they know how to do it, we say, y'all know how to do it. I don't have to be able to do that. You update your technological acumen, right?
Mhm.
And really think about it.
Yes.
Where do you want to go? Do you want to travel? Okay,
Right.
let's travel. Like, what do you want to do? But I think the answer to your question is think about it.
Yeah.
You spend some time thinking, how would I like to spend this time now? This time is my own time
Right.
that they're not depending on, right?
Right. Yeah,
For
because
some of
that's
us, it's like
important.
3 weeks of sleeping late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important because whether or not you're building new skills or you're brushing up on, your very natural skills and
Mhm.
talents, or whether or not you want to go back to school, or like you said, start a business, work for someone else, whatever it is, I encourage moms to do something in this season that they love. Even if you find you're in a situation where you have to go to work. um some will choose to go, some will choose to start a business, but if you're in a financial situation where you absolutely have to do that, try to focus on areas in which will bring you joy.
Joy.
I
Mhm,
feel like it will be much easier to get up in the morning.
mhm,
Like you
mhm,
said, it's you are willing to do a 9 to 5 because it's hard work, it's passionate, it's ministry, which is who you are at the core, right?
mhm, mhm.
um, and so, focus on that, and try to find something that brings you joy, that will not be a drudge to get up in the morning and make you feel like, where'd all the time go? I'm not accomplishing anything. Um, so I think that that's very important. Now, I want to move a little forward here with right now. As you, let me see here. How did your plans, say a decade ago, when you thought what you were going to want this next season to look like, how do they differ, or maybe they don't differ at all from what you are seeing in this season right now in your life?
Oh, that's a very good question. I never saw myself in this job. So I was
Okay.
not, I never saw this at all.
Mm.
Working full time for my church, I never saw that. But the
Mhm.
church itself has had some transition. So I fit into the transition right now. And so the Lord knew that. I just didn't know it.
Mhm.
But what I would say is, so I guess if I look back about, even if I look back just to my daughter's graduation,
Mhm.
I was adamant, Carla, that when that third one graduated, I was completely doing a full 180 away from other people's children and their mamas and homeschooling and all of that. This was not what
Yes.
I was going to do.
Mhm.
And but again, I began to realize the richness of this soil. Like
Mhm.
I can't not pour it out.
Right.
And um when I think about what kind of business I wanted to have, or even if I want, like I thought I wanted to be a therapist, I was going to go into private practice. It was always about families. It was just not going to center like the things that I've done. I thought I wanted a hard stop transition.
Mm.
And I think that came from the intensity of how I did what I did, how I hyper focused on my kids at that in that season. I think it came from that the other side of burnout. If you start to feel burnout, the other side of burnout is a complete departure, right?
Right.
And so I was like, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing any of this anymore. I'm gonna make Damon retire early, and we're gonna. I mean, I was doing something completely different. So it changed in terms of the focus of what I wanted to do. What I will tell you though, the surprising part again is working at the church that keeps us kind of tethered. But the other thing that I think is a little surprising is that it is I am growing in how I present what I think I've built and learned. And because like I have a friend who her whole thing is still education advocacy, and she's still, fighting for the right to homeschool across the country and speaking on those kind of stages and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that I was vocal and loud at that, right? But I
Hmm.
don't want to do that. What I want to do is work with the people, like individually building people up, because what I learned my purpose is facilitating wholeness in folks, which has nothing, it doesn't, it's independent of how they educate their children.
Right. Exactly.
Before it would have been all about, but it's not that now. And so that is a little bit of a departure. And working with moms and helping them find uh their relationship with the Lord and how it makes their life all it's supposed to be. Working with moms and doing that with them has very little to do with how I educated my children or how they educate theirs,
Hmm.
except it has everything to do with it because that's their story too, right? And so, including everything is, I don't even know if I'm answering that question correctly, but it is,
Absolutely, you did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things I know for my husband and I. We didn't have like a mission statement for this season of our life or a big
Hmm.
paragraph that
Hmm.
described it. And I talk about this in other interviews, our focus was travel.
Hmm.
Just drop everything and travel the world. Well, dropping everything seems, like you said, just a hard stop. I've spent, over a decade encouraging, homeschooling and unschooling families all over the world, and as well as in the foster care and adoption space. And as you have noticed with yourself, is that I noticed God leading me to do more of that, a more
Right,
intense
right.
version of that. But I see myself focusing more on moms in general than
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
homeschooling moms. Although I still do that, and I don't know where that will end. I've written books about it and spoken on it, but um, some things are the same and some things are not. We have some
Right.
dynamics, in our family that, now I'm a grandmother of two, going on three.
Mm.
And it's really interesting how magnificently wonderful these little people are and how I don't want to be away from them.
I know it. I
Because we
know.
used to always joke with our kids. You can find us in Fiji. You want to know where mom and dad is? You want us to babysit, you got to give us a month notice kind of thing. We're
Hmm.
all cocky about it. Like, we're not going to be sitting around knitting in the rocking chair
Right.
waiting for y'all to drop the kids off. And now I'm like, when can I see my grandbaby?
Right.
So, again, a whole different season. And it's sooner than we thought we would be grandparents. But I'm telling you, these little people have changed my whole perspective and how I want them to be a part of this season, and that happens with most people along the way as well during the
Hmm.
season. So yes, you answered the question perfectly. Now,
I want to encourage the listeners to, or those who are watching this, Carla, to really look at your other books because Momspiration and the Busy Girl's Guide to, what's the rest of the title of that one?
Busy Girl's Guide to Dreaming Big.
Dreaming. I'm telling you, if you can't dream yet, can I do this plug? Is this okay?
Oh, absolutely.
If you can't dream yet, because some of us can't dream, this is all we know,
Right.
right? If you
Yeah.
can't dream yet, Carla's books will help you
Thank
figure
you.
out what it is. What are your what do I even want to do? Like, what do I
Right.
like? Especially if
Hmm.
you became a mom early, like so that you didn't have a career before, or because some that happens to a lot of us. Like we don't know what we're
Yes.
doing. Like I went to school and I got out of college and got married and had a baby. It happens
Right.
to a lot of us. So if you've never really done anything other than being a mom, which is noble and God bless you,
Yes.
we're who we are. If you don't know what else, it's possible that all you've done for 20 years is mother your children and wife your husband and
Right.
keep. That is that's wonderful. God bless you. They're all the richer for it. But now
Yes.
you have to find yourself.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to say to anybody who's stuck or thinks they might need a jolt at that, because some of us know, but we don't know that we know.
Yeah.
Both of those books, I think, Momspiration is great because it helps the kids dream, right? And then
Yes.
Busy Girl's Guide is like, hey, what do you think about that? What
Yeah.
would you do, all things considered or nothing considered at all? I love that part.
Yes.
Like, what would you do if you had nobody else to consider? That was so good for me back in October.
Yeah.
That together. And I just, I think that people, that's one, I guess those are tools to do what I
Hmm.
suggested is think about it.
Yes. It's
They
very
help you
true.
think about it. So, you just need to go on and get all Carter's books, is what you need to do. So you can figure out how to do it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's good
Um,
work. You do good work.
thank you. So tell us a little bit more about what's happening in your current season. You told us that you're working, your heart
Mhm.
work,
Mhm.
which again, like I said, ministry is at the core of who you are. What are some other projects and things that you're pursuing in this next season? Um, whether it's right now or, in the near future. Can you share with us,
Yeah,
some of the
so
things that you're excited about?
absolutely. What I realized by the time number three got to his junior year is that I had become really good at helping people's kids go to college.
That's awesome.
The end of high school, so I started the homeschool tutorial when about 8 years ago with a friend of mine. So it's like in some states it's a hybrid program. They come 2 days a week and they're home three. And as we expanded into high school, I became like the high school specialist because I had two in high school at that point. And so my consultancy does two things. It's called Home Ed Confidence, and it does two things. On one hand, I help families make best fit college choices for their student.
Hmm.
We have, and it's for mostly for non-traditional students, kids who either homeschooled, did some variation of microschooling, some variation of that, or small private schools, anything that's not traditional conventional system.
Right,
And the reason I specialize in them is because that's what I know,
right.
but also because I want parents to feel empowered. You've taken them out of the box. Don't shove
Hmm.
them back in to go fit
Right,
some school's requirement. There are
right.
3,500 schools in this country. Let's find the one that fits your kid.
That's
So
awesome.
my philosophy is don't fit the kid into the school. Find the school that your kid naturally will fit in. So that's what I do for families. And then at the same time with Home Ed Confidence, I do is consult with people who are either starting their own school or non-traditional system, or they already have one and they're expanding into high school. So I kind of help them flesh that out so that by the time the kids finish in that setting,
Hmm.
they are not feeling compelled to get into a box. Everybody's comfortable with them making the best fit choice. So there's two sides of that. That's Home Ed Confidence, which is kind of building now, right?
Hmm.
And then I do the ministry stuff, Mom Matters, which includes Homeschool Moms Pray. And through that ministry, and my husband and I are forming a nonprofit. That's the coming soon. We're forming a nonprofit to help facilitate his Bible study and all the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing together. But for me, Mom Matters and Homeschool Moms Pray, a lot of what I do, we meet monthly for Homeschool Moms Pray, on first Monday nights on Zoom. But Mom Matters is basically a ministry that helps moms think about the fact that if it matters to mom, it matters to God, and everything in our lives concerns him. Scripture
Yes,
teaches us that he is concerned about that which concerns us. And we are
yes.
concerned about everything from our children to our marriages to what's going on in the world to the noise that my neighbor makes at night to the grocery stores closing to how do I take care of my body, everything from, being, pregnancies, I mean, all of it. It all concerns us as moms because everything affects us as moms, right? And so Mom Matters, is the ministry that helps, like I said, helps moms know and feel secure that the Lord is concerned about everything you're concerned about. So we have, we talk about it. I have a tea coming up in the next couple of weeks. It's a week from tomorrow. A week from tomorrow. Where we're celebrating legacy, right? It's called the Pearls of Wisdom Legacy Tea. It celebrates legacy in the lives of women, and just other events and stuff that kind of bring those truths to the forefront.
That's awesome. Wow.
That's a
Wow.
lot.
And all I hear is ministry, 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 ministry. And that's amazing because what better way to use our gifts and talents and passion
Mhm.
to serve God and impact the lives of other people. So that's so exciting. I can't wait to hear more. I wish I was closer to be a part of the tea, but I know that I had the privilege of speaking at your conference this past fall,
Yeah, and it
and
was
that
wonderful.
was wonderful. I met a lot of amazing women and I just had a really great time.
Yeah.
Um, and so, one question that I'll ask, and you might have more than one, but I would say the one that stands out the most: what part of the book, chapter, or even, just something that was said that in the book that stood out the most to you?
Um, I think so. I I examined myself a lot. I told you I got stuck a couple places. I
Hmm.
examine myself a lot when I was reading the when you got the part of the chapter about the part of the book. Let me see if I can see the name of the chapter. We talked about it. Not the coulda, shoulda, woulda. Maybe it was the next one after. I'm gonna scroll.
They're
I have the
still
book.
here.
Um, uh, so I think what stood out most to me is when you talked about how we handle change. And well, you know what, Carla? It was actually a thread all the way through.
Okay.
It was about uh, the the things in our children's lives that happen as they grow older and you know become who they are and do what they're doing. And now at this point, we're kind of doing it alongside them, right? The ones that are still home, the ones that are out and about doing their thing. And you used a quote from somebody else that said, "Change is hard at first,
Mhm.
messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end."
Okay.
I am looking so forward to have how we continue to grow. And so I made some notes about like what is my the chapter about purpose. What
Oh,
is my purpose and how that differs from seasons?
mm,
That's where I got. What is my
yes.
purpose and how it's different from seasons? You said this stood out like loud, like a blaring light. You said your purpose, what you're meant to do looks different in different seasons, and not to get purpose and season confused.
Yes.
That's what stood out most to me. Change is going to continue to happen because
Mm,
we're all going to grow and change. But if we can remember that purpose and seasons, your purpose was not to raise children because that only lasted for a season.
right. Hmm.
If that was the case, we would shrivel up and die as soon as they grow up.
Right.
There's so much more, you know what I'm saying? Like there's
Right.
so much more to us. You know how they say fruit flies are meant, they last like 24 hours, they're meant to like lay a lot of eggs to get on your nerves and then they die. Like if that was all we were supposed to do, we would
Right.
cease to exist.
Exactly.
Can I just encourage
Exactly.
everybody not to cease to exist?
Hmm. Mm.
Your purpose
Mm-mm-mm.
goes on. Your purpose
Yes.
continues,
Yes.
right? Don't cease to exist. Well, how else does your purpose manifest, if I can use that expression, in other seasons of life?
Yes. That is so, 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 so good. One last thing. I do want to let everybody know in the back of every chapter, and I do this in most of my books, not all of them, but most of them, are questions to work out the details of what I discuss in that particular chapter. So you have a chance for growth and change as you're going through the book. So don't feel like you have to zoom through it. But just take your time, and that's with any of my books. Take your time, answer those questions, really ponder um, the ideas, that they are referring to. Um, but my last question before we wrap up here is really advice for your main advice for the mom that is approaching this season or in the midst of this season, and maybe she is terrified, maybe she is confused, maybe she's afraid, maybe she feels like her identity has been stolen once the kids, fly the nest. If you could briefly just share with us your main advice for that mom.
I think I would just kind of continue what we've been saying all along is trust
Mhm.
God with everything. And no, that is so flippant and so, cliche and all. But really, um, lean into just, you know what, mom, you have become really good at this already, right? Every season we bring them home and we don't know what to do with them. Like, what is that kid? What am I supposed to do with this baby? And
Right,
then they and within the first 3 months they change stages. They're sitting up and now they're gassy and they and they start teething and they don't sleep for a year. And then so every season we've had to trust the Lord,
right.
and every season we've had to trust ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think that as you approach this season, as you move through this season, as you become more adept at what you're doing here and you become more of yourself and you figure out like who you are next, I
Mhm.
think I think leaning into Jesus is the best thing we can do. And I hope that doesn't come across like, like I said, like flip it. It really is important. Leaning
Yes.
into Jesus at every stage is the best thing to do because he I'm getting ready to start quoting scripture by accident, but he really is the author and finisher. Like he
Yes, he
started
is.
this in you, and you have to remember that he who began a good work will continue it. The good work involved raising children,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
that was not the totality of it. Again, because if that's all we were here for, we would literally stop existing once they got to 18, right?
so true.
So lean into whatever he has for you. And I think that it is okay to ask him, dear Lord, what's next?
Yes,
Right? And he
yes, yes,
comes,
yes.
you are so good at this, the leading us. So, ladies, don't be afraid of the questions. When I say I got stuck, I say I'm supposed to be reading in preparation for the interview. And I was like, I got to sit with this for a minute. Every chapter, I got to sit with this for a minute. I got to sit with this for a minute. Take the time to sit with it.
Yeah,
So he doesn't,
absolutely.
Carmen's books are a great read. She writes in a way that we can really understand it. But take the
Thank
time.
you.
Don't rush yourself through to the next chapter. Take the time, use it as a devotional. Ask the questions. Pray about, Lord, this question says this. What is the answer to this question?
Yeah.
The Lord, what's the answer to this question? Sit with it. You'll be so much richer at the end because it's a new season.
Yeah, it is. It
New.
really.
It is, yeah, it's new.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you,
Yeah.
sharing all of my books and,
I love it.
just helping highlight some of the things that really, really were my heart for writing the book in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, And for all of those that are watching, stay tuned to this series. These
Yeah.
five moms are dynamic. They've reinvented themselves. They have become passionate about all kinds of things that I think that I hope you can see yourself in. Maybe you're not looking to be and follow their template, but you'll begin to hear things God speak to you while you're reading the book and
Mhm.
while you're listening to this series of interviews where you will have some vision and some direction, and that God can guide you into this next season, whether
Yeah.
you're just entering or you're right dead smack in the middle of it. Again, the book will be available on Amazon April 26th, just in time for you to get it for yourself, your sister. You can even get it for your mom. You can get it for anyone that is approaching or or right in the middle of their empty nest era, so to speak. So thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me on this conversation. So many aha moments. You just blessed my socks off with,
Oh,
the wisdom that you shared today. I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It was amazing. So I'm so excited for the moms to see this particular episode. So all of you stay tuned. Make sure that you watch every single series.
yes.
They will be airing every single Wednesday. Um, well, I'll take that back. They'll be airing all throughout the month of April, leading up to the launch, which will be on April 26th. So, that being said, thank you again, Nicole. And I just so appreciate you. I knew that you would be a powerhouse for this topic. And for all of those watching, stay tuned to the next series.